Welcome to Colliding Worlds. I'm your host, Angela Valenti Romero. Come with us as we take you on another journey.
I'm Victory Grund, and I started Old Town Artisan Studio about 3 years ago. And it's an outreach in the world of art, which is becoming a lost art. They're taking art out of all the schools now, and I could see that there was a tremendous void in our area. I started sculpting at the age of 67, so I wasn't one of the young kids that you want to reach out to, but I was touched by art, even at that age of my life. I had my parents living with us for 12 years, which was a magical time. And when my dad fell and broke his hip, they couldn't live with us anymore. But I got up in the morning and I didn't hear their walkers on the tile floor, and I'd end up going back to bed, and I didn't realize until about 2 weeks later that it was clinical depression. And a neighbor of ours had a studio where he did a lot of ceramics, and he did sculpture. And he asked me if I'd come over and maybe be interested in trying it. And I just thought, oh, this is just, I've never done sculpture before. I've never touched clay. And he said, I want you to come over and I'm going to give you a pipe, a tennis ball, and 4 pounds of clay. And he asked me to make the shape of an egg. And I thought, oh, I can make the shape of an egg. So I did. And he took this clay after I did the egg, and he literally moved it just slightly, just an angle. Gave me 2 squares and put it under the egg and said, push that clay up into that, the squares into the piece, and then 2 rectangles, and molded them together and pushed them in. Suddenly I looked at it and I realized I had a head, a neck, and shoulders. And that's where the magic began. I had read a book. He said, imagine somebody that you'd like to picture in your heart and in your mind. And I'd read the book called The Tortilla Curtain. And it was about a Mexican immigrant and how he interrelated with suburbia and worked so hard. He was one of these precious workers that would do anything to make money and lived under a freeway in LA. And he was in those tented areas where they'll work at anything to make money for their family. So I pictured this weathered immigrant, and I looked up, for the first time in my life, I looked up sculpture and weathered faces, and I started, as a matter of fact, some of my friends don't like it because I notice their wrinkles all the time. But I was able to etch their wrinkles into this piece of clay. And I was able to learn how to do the eyes and his larger nose and just the little markings in his face that made him look weathered. And I added the mustache. And then I figured he had to have an old Mexican weathered hat. So I got a doll straw hat and took just a flat piece of clay, molded it to that, and then shaped it up into a weathered hat like a Mexican immigrant would maybe wear in a field. And suddenly I had this amazing piece of art that just had such emotion and a story to it, because I could imagine something and it came true. And this very same week, I'd gone in to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, thinking, well, that might get me out of my funk. I went into the Boys and Girls Club, this beautiful facility, and there were all these kids sitting around the gym. And I asked Maria, I said, what are these kids doing? Are they waiting to be, turn in the sports or the soccer field? And she said, oh no, they're not athletically inclined. And I said, and it just clicked. I thought, well, what would they like art? If I started a studio and I bought some wheels and shelving and could get maybe somebody to come in and teach art, would these kids enjoy that? The miracle happened was that night, a neighbor of ours I had never met before asked me what I'd done that day. And I told him I was taking a sculpting class, had gone to Boys and Girls Club, and I had a dream about putting art into nonprofit programs because it's not in schools anymore. So he listened, and the next morning knocked on my door, and he said, I'm going to gamble on you, Victory. And I said, how's that, Ellen? And he handed me a check for $5,000. That $5,000 was given to me in May, and it enabled us to hire Kay Hinkle, one of the most amazing sculptresses in our valley, and 2 other separate contractors, Sergio Nadavi, who's wonderful, beautiful potter and raku artist. And that gave us a chance to give 29 Boys and Girls Club classes all summer long. We had the Braille Institute come in that summer, And we also had the Down Syndrome Girl Scouts start with us that year. And it was all done by that investment. One of the visions that we had then was that we could start a nonprofit program in other incredible organizations. We have so many of them in this desert. Morning Star, the cancer survivors, we've got cerebral palsy, we've got senior centers, and none of them have art. So my dream is to raise funds that would enable us to be able to enhance their programs. And we're hoping at a fundraiser that we have coming up, a gala that's called Hearts for Art. And we're going to have so many people come from all over this valley that would like us to be able to put art programs into other facilities. There's art rooms in many of these places, and camps, Camp Aaron for Morning Star. Lots of the facilities, Boys and Girls Clubs, all have art rooms. There's something about clay, and we're also doing glass. It's a lasting medium. It allows you to tell man's story. You can express emotions, and it lasts forever. And it's been a part of man's life since the beginning of time. Man has etched his story in clay and in glass for thousands of years in every single culture. And it's gone in our country. They're taking it out of the schools. So with a very little amount of money, and we're hoping we could just raise enough to be able to start a mobile program and get a van that we can load with clay, glazes, brushes, and be capable of going to all these other after-school programs, that we can go to their camps and their facilities and give them art.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I actually go by Scott, and I am an Artisan member kind of at this studio, Old Town Artisan Studio, and what I do is I tend to throw in the wheel a lot more than I don't. I'm not good at hand building, and what I do is I volunteer most of my time, and I also like to give back to the community in the sense that in November I will be doing a full event for the Brothers and Sisters Club, and I will be throwing as a demonstration for other children, and I will be able to give back to the community and hopefully get other kids interested in art and different types of ceramics. Volunteering is a lot of fun. It is really amazing to come in and to see the look on people's faces when you help them, and the warmth and the feeling you get is just, it's something else. It's very distinct.
Right now, what we're doing, and that's so exciting, we are taking glass, for instance, out to Mecca. Right before Mother's Day last year, we put together all the glass parts and pieces, and they're brilliant and wonderful. We took it into the Mecca Boys and Girls program, thinking that they would need and want to make something beautiful for their mothers for Mother's Day. And we took it into them, and these kids assembled these glass pendants for their mothers, very similar to the earrings I'm wearing. They were brilliant and beautiful. When these kids were brought back the piece that they had made themselves, they were in awe. And one little 14-year-old boy was in tears. He said, "You know, my mother has never had anything beautiful, and I made it for her." And that was the beginning of our outreach program. We do now take art to the Indio Teen Center. We've taken art out to the assisted living centers. We now take clay and glass to all ages and all abilities. That's the amazing thing about art, is that you can take it and start at any age, and they discover something that fills a void. Doctors every day say that they can't do this, they can't golf, they can't play tennis. Right now we've got students coming into our studio that are cancer survivors that were told they couldn't golf anymore, and that was all their life was. But they come in here and they just have said it's a calming place. It's a place where they don't worry about where cancer is going to go next. It's opened up a whole new passion for them that they didn't know existed. And that's what we're about, and it happens every day.
My name is Miranda, and I am making this awesome store. I got into the studio because I was looking for a place to make something for my dad for Father's Day. I got a mug and then I wrote in calligraphy, "You're better than Superman," because it was a Superman mug. So I was like, yay. And the studio helped me with that. And then I started getting into it and I brought my mom in with me. And then we started being here. We started loving it here. We started expressing ourselves more. And it brought my mom and I back together versus before when we were we don't exactly hate each other, but we're like cats and dogs, and it's just easier to be ourselves and to not fight when we're here. So it's a really refreshing thing, and it's become a really good part of my life, being here. I'm currently studying in my psych class the effect art has on mental patients and people who have strong anger issues or depression issues, and just how they work out together and how they help each other. Before I started at the studio, I would have looked at something that didn't have any color on it and been like, that's pretty much how it's gonna stay. That's how it's gonna stay, because I couldn't think about it. And now I'm like, this would go good, this color is amazing. I just grab colors and I'm like, it goes. And so I think it's really important for kids to learn that.
We have a lot of students coming in now with our Artisan program for a very little investment. You can come in for $100 a month, and we have room for so many that you can come in after work, before work, and have it be your creative time. And people that had never discovered art before now come in on a regular basis, and they spend time in the studio where it's quiet. They could put on classical music. They could bring out their piece that they've been working on from the shelves that we provide them for storage space. They could buy the clay. They could sit at a potter's wheel. And the studio becomes theirs. It's a place where they belong. And they feel it's now a part of their life. We need volunteerism. We need people who are willing to bring in homemade cookies, for instance, a lemonade for these assisted living groups that come in. All they ever get is institutionalized food. When they come in and they see that something's been made special for them, when they walk into this class and we're playing Gershwin medleys in the background, while they're working on the clay, we have volunteers that bring their clay to them, as simple as that, and to make them feel welcome while they're in our studio. We need people that would come in and do what I'm doing right now. Our teenage artisan board members and our seniors simply cut out, it's like rolling a piece of dough, and they use cookie cutters like these to make little Christmas ornaments or holiday ornaments. We want to be very respectful of all of our celebrations that are happening this time of year. But when they make these and they cut them out just a little bit later, they need to be just smoothed out a little bit just to make them look like we'd like them to. And it's simple just to sit here with a little wet sponge. You could come in with a girlfriend with your cup of coffee and just simply smooth these pieces so they're ready to go to the Christmas lighting that we have over, or the tree lighting at La Quinta's resort. And we need lots of hands on deck for the simplest projects. And that way, too, they pass the word. When grandparents have grandchildren in town, we let them know that this is a place they can come in and build a memory with their grandchildren. And if they're making something that's $15, that $15 gives free classes to the nonprofits that we serve, with as little as a $15, $20 donation to come in and make like 3 or 4 Christmas ornaments or holiday ornaments. We're making menorahs right now for one of the schools, the Jewish schools here. And for the littlest investment, it gives free classes back. When the women come in and they sit here and have a glass of wine, they play some music, they can build a class, their own custom class, and it's $35 for a pendant. That money goes directly into free classes for Big and Little Sisters, for the bigs to come in, and a lot of them are out of work. So we want the Big and Little Sisters to know that they can come in here anytime with their littles, and they're building a memory as they're building a relationship with those littles. And we do intergenerational classes. These are magic. where we have our teenage artisan board. These are volunteers from La Quinta High, Xavier Prep, and they come in and sit next to a senior from an assisted living. They're sitting here building a piece of clay together that they'll never, ever forget doing, and it'll last forever. But they're also building a relationship. And we put a word for them to talk about. Like one time I put Jell-O, and Brittany said, "Why would Victory put Jell-O, Vera, as a word to talk about?" And Vera said, "Honey, I remember when they invented Jell-O." And they got the giggles because Brittany said, "Well, of course they've always had Jell-O." One of the dreams I have is to have a circle of friends, art advocates in every one of our communities in this valley, as simply as maybe $100 a year, an annual fee of $100 a year, annual donation. And if we had 10 women in every country club give $100 a year is all, 100, maybe $10 a month, they would become advocates for art, and they would be a circle of friends. And all we would ask of them is to pass the word, that they know we do classes, that they could have groups of women, they could have their golfers, their friends, their families when they're in town, come in and say, there's a place to do art in our valley, not just see art in the galleries. The Coachella Valley is known for art. We are known for art. We have the most beautiful festivals that there are. We have art on El Paseo. Every time you go into the Living Desert, the first thing you see is the beautiful cat on the entry. The beautiful animals that are recreated in bronze, they all started in clay. Marilyn Monroe is memorialized out of the first moment that she was formed in clay, and now she's standing so tall in the middle of Palm Springs. Our children and our generations to come are going to know who our film heroes are, and our military heroes, and our medical research heroes. They're going to know who they are because they were formed first in a piece of clay and then magnified and put into bronze. You can't go down the streets in Palm Springs without seeing Lucille Ball. Kids will know who she is now because she's memorialized in a piece of bronze, and she started out in a piece of clay. And that's one of the exciting parts of what we're doing with this medium, is it's lasting, and it builds a memory, and it builds a memorial for people to know and know about for generations to come. But when you make something, it gives you new eyes to see the world. When the special ed kids come in, and even our kids from our schools, our local schools and other groups like Girl Scouts and others, we try to save the opening of that kiln for that moment for them, because it is like opening a gift. Every time you open the kiln, because they see that they made something in glazes, which are pastels, and they use their imaginations and they write their story, but there's something so magical about opening the kiln and seeing the bright colors, and their expressions are so amazing when they see, I made that, and I'm so excited, and my dad's going to be so proud of me, or my mom, or whoever it is that they're making it for, because so often their gifts that they're doing in here, the things they're making in here, they're for somebody else. They're often not things that they're just making for themselves, but they make it for their mom or their grandma or their sister or their brother. And they're so proud of it. And again, it's so different than going to the store and buying a gift for someone when they know they've made it for somebody special.
It's really important that those people that are looking at this, that you reach out and support us and give to us either by volunteering your time or donating your money, because this Old Town Artisan Studio here in La Quinta is just a great place for people to come in and do things and make things that they wouldn't normally have done before. And all I can say is, when you see old people and young people smiling and happy faces leaving and can't wait to come back again. There's a lot of seniors out there that, you know, they're older and they just don't want to be with people or whatever, and then they come here and they just light up. It's an awe-inspiring, changing phenomena when they come here, because they come in real quiet And then by the time they leave, they can't wait to come back. They can't wait to see what they're going to make next. In order for something to survive, you have to feed it, you have to nourish it. And in order to keep the studio going, donations and volunteerism keeps it going year after year. Been here since 2009. We want to be here forever. We want to be able to give and to do things with all these people year after year.
Tell me what a gift of $100 could bring to the studio.
It could bring 4 individual classes to the special need adult or a child, and that includes the clay and the glazing and the studio time of an instructor coming in here and teaching them how to make something.
I think one of the things that we are trying to do and be very careful about is to be able to keep our funding in such a way that we know that people can invest in what we're doing in any capacity. Just the smallest donation could go so far and mean so much. Ceramics and glass that we get are not an expensive medium, but it is something that when people come in and they give time, it's valuable. It's so valuable. But you can also give just any kind of a donation, and it goes to our nonprofit efforts that we can give classes to other wonderful charities that exist in the desert. It's infinitum. The more we can get as donations, the more we can reach out to every age and every ability in our valley. It's endless. We can go to Living Desert, do educational programs there. We can go to every other kind of nonprofit, medical and psychological. I'd like to do the addiction programs because when they've given up an addiction, there's a void and they need to have something to do. And we are a to-do, hands-on facility. And often they've lost jobs, so any little contribution, any financial help can go so far. We need grants. We need to know that our cities are behind us and our foundations are behind us, because a lot of people realize today that art is leaving the schools. Art can become a lost art because we are about the only place that you can come and build something that's going to last forever, a memory. I have an ashtray that my husband made when he was 5. It says Dickie on the back, and he made it when he was 5 years old. He's 75. We still have that ashtray. You can ask almost anyone that you know, and they have got something that their child has made or they've made when they were little. And if it's in ceramics or glass, they have not thrown it away. They treasure it forever.